It's preparing. It takes a little bit of a second here to go.
Live on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. You ever done that?
Oh, yeah. Not my first rodeo.
All right. And there we are. How you doing today, Jason?
Fantastic, Jimmy.
Excellent. Excellent. Glad to hear it. So let me give you a quick little introduction, and we've got the assistant in the house as well. So she's going to click and move everybody over to the main chat room.
Can't wait to hear this intro.
Oh, it's going to be good. By the way, cheers. Got some Old Elk in the glass.
Cheers. How you doing? I got my Old Elk glass with Rubicon in it.
Ooh, that's always a good one.
But Old Elk is standing by.
Yeah, nice. All right. Let's get this game started. So Jason has been wheeling since 1989 when he built his CJ5 into a rock crawler to traverse the toughest trails of California. Loving every aspect of wheeling, from building a capable rig to meeting incredible people out on the trail. In 2017, I think this is the correct date, Jason bought his rock crawling buggy, which is quite an interesting rig, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Jason is one of the hosts of the world famous podcast Wheeling, Wine, and Whiskey, where they discuss a few of their favorite pastimes in life. And by the way, once again, thanks for the Old Elk recommendations.
Yeah.
He lives by the motto, work hard, play harder. Jason, welcome to Snail Shop Talk. How are you doing today?
Wow, that's quite the intro. Well, it sounds vaguely familiar, but
yeah, stripped right off your website.
Well, thanks for having me, Jimmy. Yeah, this is fun. You said, hey, you want to do this shop top thing? And I said, well, I'd love to try. I don't know if I could do as good as Mike Austin, but I'm going to try.
Few people can, but you know, some might succeed.
That was classic. Anyway, yes. Right on, man.
So how's life for you? How's life in the Bay Area with COVID going on? What's going on?
You know, when you live in the Bay Area and the crazy lifestyle, little phases you. But this COVID thing's been crazy. Definitely a new world out there right now. It's starting to open back up, but you know, just a simple stop at Home Depot that normally took me 10 minutes is now taking me an hour. I'm not eating at my favorite restaurants that I would frequently dine at. Shipping, you know, we've all heard the shipping woes. You know, you used to get stuff in a day or two, and now it's taken a couple weeks. So, but I mean, in the big picture, healthy, making the best of it, adjusting, and moving forward. So, yeah.
Definitely. So what actually got you into off-roading originally? Let's back up a little bit more. What was your first ever vehicle?
First ever four-wheel drive vehicle?
And what was the first vehicle you had that was yours?
That would be the truck that I still have, the 1989 Ford F-150.
Oh, cool.
Yep, yeah. 300 straight six, 5-speed manual.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first vehicle that that was mine.
And is that one a two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive?
Well, of course, four-wheel drive. Come on, Jimmy. The Toyotas have two-wheel drives. Fords don't.
I own a Ford that's two-wheel drive, Jason.
I know. Clifford is two-wheel drive. We need to fix that.
Yeah, it probably will be done eventually. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go. Right now, I have to park up at the chalet when I go to the Rubicon because it won't be able to pull Bobcat up that hill down in the spillway.
Okay, well, we can fix that.
All right, sounds good. Cool. So what moved you from getting that Ford into more of a rock crawling lifestyle, off-roading, and into that direction?
Yeah, so I had a friend of the family that had a YJ, a Barbie Jeep.
Okay.
Fairly new at the time to him. And he went four-wheeling down at Pismo and Hollister and stuff. And, you know, so I took my truck down there. Well, Pismo was no big deal. You air down and you could get pretty much everywhere. But Hollister, I was just scratching up my brand new truck on Manzanita, you know, getting that good Manzanita pinstriping.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is not good. But I really enjoyed it. I had a blast. Just a fun time. I really enjoyed every aspect of going off road. And so I said, well, I'm going to look for, a Jeep. And I was actually looking for Willys because I thought they were super cool, flat fender,
You better be careful. Mike's in the chat room.
Uh-oh. I can't see that. This is not good. This is not good. Cuidado. Anyways, so I found the CJ5 not knowing much about drivetrain of what was desirable at the time. I had no idea about the Dana 44 or AMC 20 rear end and what was good, what was bad. And luckily I ended up with a Dana 44 rear, 30 front. It had the 258 straight six, so always solid motor, not fuel injected, carbureted, and a piece of shit T13 transmission. So anyways, that was the beginning of the end for my bank account because Jeep stands for just empty every pocket. And I took it out to Hollister, of course, broke. And I forget what I broke first. It was something minor. So fixed it and started kind of restoring it. It was root beer brown.
Oh, was it?
The color of it, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So anyways, and it had a brown AstroTurf carpet inside. It was terrible. I bought it off this kid and he was crying when I drove it away. I kind of felt bad. Yeah, it was, he didn't want to sell. I don't know what the whole situation is, but
okay.
Drove away. And second or third time at Hollister, the transmission went out on me on 5 fingers, which is a very steep hill. And I had to kick the transfer case into neutral to get back down the hill freewheeling because the whole drivetrain was locked up. And then it went in for surgery of V8 automatic and building everything up from there. And then from that point, it was no return.
Right.
I was fully hooked into off-roading and four-wheeling.
I've never made it up 4 fingers.
5 fingers.
5 fingers.
Because, yeah,
yeah,
5.
I've never made it up. And
so,
only mainly because of like random, like one time I didn't have a locker and it just wasn't working out. One time I didn't even have 4-wheel drive, but I had a locker and like it just didn't, I've never tried. And then a lot of times it's closed.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. So back in the day, it was never closed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dating myself here, but back in the day, it was never closed. But they started closing it because there's vineyards right there, just over the hill. And the dust that was created from spinning your tires, going up the hill, it'd blow over the hill onto the grapes. And of course, it compromised the grape production, which, I love four-wheeling, I love wine. So there was this give and take, and I frequent those vineyards. So I can sympathize, but it sucked when it was closed. But now it's like a big bonus that it's open because it seems like it's always closed when we go down there.
Yeah.
And there's Truck Hill, which is harder and longer, steeper. So that's always open. But anyway.
Yeah, my fun story about Truck Hill is that I was goofing around one time on Truck Hill and I started driving up it in reverse. And I was just goofing around, figuring like, because it's sandy at the bottom, right? And so that's when people reverse, that's when they start getting squirrely and twisted, is because it's sandy at the bottom and they can't control their downhill descent. So I was like, well, I'll go up it backwards. Then if I don't make it, I'm just going normal downhill, driving forward. Well, it went really good. I was going up, going. I'm like, this is going pretty well. And I was like, well, let's see how far I can go. And so I was like, rah, and went all the way to the top in reverse.
Nice.
Yeah. In Bobcat.
But there you go. So I've seen every condition on those hill climbs there. So I've made it up in my F-150 numerous times. I've made it up in the Jeep stock. And then there's been times where I haven't made it in the fully modified Jeep because it was so dug out. So it depends. They run the grader on it. And then it can be nice and smooth and it's a good climb. Even when it's in its best condition, it's nothing to shake a stick at because I've seen a lot of rollovers on that hill.
And that's why it's called Truck Hill.
And that's why it's called Truck Hill. Yeah.
Right. Well, and let's continue with Hollister for just a little bit. I mean, in the more recent times, they've done a lot of work there.
Yes.
They've added, what was it? Is it McCrazy?
So,
And all
and
the obstacles out there.
and another obstacle course they've added, all that. So it's been cool because we consider Hollister in our backyards. We're tied to Hollister from, you know, helping out with projects there, rehabilitation projects, fencing, you know, garbage cleanup days, because we call it in our backyard, but it's about an hour and half drive from my house, hour and a half, so not bad. But it's super cool because in the park system, off-road park system in California, you know, you got Prairie City and stuff. This is like the gym. There's something for everybody. And some people will discount Hollister and say, oh, no, it's easy. No, if you know, we can take you into places that you cannot go. I don't care what vehicle you got, what your skill set is, it is going to test you. And that's the great thing there. And I see a ton of rollovers there because people are in their comfort zone. Oh, I'm just going to go out wheeling for the day. And they come around a corner and I see this, usually it's a Toyota on its side truck. But anyways, yeah, so they did add the McCrazy that you talked about, which was one of the best improvements they did. And they've been evolving with the sport of four-wheeling. So, you know, when it started out, people had these quote unquote, you know, stock rigs with maybe a little lift kit and bigger tires. And bigger tires, I mean, like 31s or 33s at the time. And the original obstacle course was great. I mean, it had a rock crawling area. It had the frame twister and the stair steps and the mud pit and all.
Was the teeter totter in then?
The teeter totter was there. I got great stories about the teeter totter. But that was great to go down and test out your vehicle and see. And then of course they had all the trails, you know, rated like, you know, ski hills from a green circle, blue square to black diamond to double black diamond. And then they came up with the tank trap when four-wheelers started doing their top truck challenge there. Well, then all these rigs were starting to get, you know, truggies and buggies were starting to come on the scene. And then these fully, you know, modified, dedicated rock crawlers. So McCrazy was this simple little road, but it used to wash out every winter, the way that it was pitched and the exposure that it got. And it was a maintenance nightmare for the park. And then I don't know who to credit came up with a bright idea, said, hey, we're going to turn this into a series of, there's like 6 sections of rock crawling, gun-eyed big pipes, concrete pipes in the ground and rocks embedded into it. And I mean, it is super cool. I've been up 5 of the 6 sections with the Jeep, 5 of the 6 sections with the buggy. There's one wall, half of the section I did, but there's one wall that stands you up on the side or straight up and down that I think it's similar to like Backdoor, a smaller Backdoor version of King of the Hammers there, right? But anyways, it's a great area to go because there's an easy trail, dirt road that is in between all those sections. So you can pick and choose what section you want to do. And you get hung up real bad, you know, you got to winch 100 feet and you're out. So it's super, very well built, very well designed. Fun area to go hang out and watch people on a weekend, go beat on their rigs and stuff. So yeah, that's McCrazy.
Yeah. And it's always fun to go wheel there, and like you get to the top of the hill, like because Hollister it's a hilly area, so you wheel up and you're going all these crazy lines, and you get up to the top, and then you turn over to the side of you and you go, there's a 4-wheel drive Volkswagen van right here. Like how the hell did this get up here?
And yeah, so May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, they usually have the Synchro de Mayo Fest down there, you know, and all those VW van synchros. And it's a blast to watch them. And they have 0 suspension travel and they flex like a brick. But it is amazing where they go. I've seen them go up stair steps, which I never thought they would make it up. I mean, there is some hardcore, you know, VW synchro van owners out there that push their vehicle, and you know their kitchen is rattling around in the back behind them, you know, when they're going up these stuff. It's cool. Cool.
It's fun to watch them because they don't flex at all. They just pull a tire off, you know, and then they tip and then they wheel on and they keep going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they're crazy. Those little vans are pretty cool.
But yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's something for everybody out there. There's the camping. There's a few different campgrounds out there, so you can go spend a weekend and set up a base camp and go exploring. And I mean, yeah, it's cool. And then the newer obstacle course they made is easier than the old one, but it's got some great challenging little spots in there. So it's a good interim for somebody that maybe just put a lift or tires on, Chris, that could go in there and play and check it out without, getting into some crazy 4-foot, boulders and stuff.
Right. Well, and I heard on your podcast today that came out that Hollister is open for like limited people.
They just opened last weekend, so no camping yet, but at least it's back open. So I'm hoping to get down there this weekend, get Chris down there so we can test out his rig, make sure everything's clearing and brake lines are long enough, and all that good stuff. Bump stops are set right. So give him a test before, and that's the great thing. Like I said earlier about Hollisters, you can go down there and totally flex out your rig, check things out. Oh, we need to fix this. We need to do that. Whatever. Put it back on the trailer. Bring it home. Fix that stuff. Head up to the Sierras, to the Rubicon, and you eliminated a lot of problems.
Right. Nice. And so you still have the CJ.
Yes.
I mean, I saw it this weekend. I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, were your eyes open?
Yeah. For a while, you were in front of us as you were driving away.
Yes.
So tell us about things that you've done to it. I know you've rebuilt it 3 times.
5 times.
5 times.
5 times had the body off of it. Frame.
Kind of give us not a very detailed step by step, but like what was the thought process of doing all these builds?
I'll give you the 15,000 foot elevation overview there. Yeah. So, buying that rig in late 89, early 90, and starting to 4-wheel, and then starting to find what I liked. Did I like just cruising on a dirt road? Did I like snow wheeling? Did I like crawling over rocks? Well, I gravitated towards the rock scene early on. I love the slow technical aspect of rock crawling. So you go to these events, these Cal 4-wheel events, and you see rigs that were badass. And then you see some that looked like they just came out of a junkyard and put air in the tires and gas in the tank and trying to complete the trail. So, but the ones that were cool, and had some suspension work done, custom stuff, and growing up with my dad as a fabricator and stuff, I'm like, took all these ideas and started incorporating them in my Jeep. Like, oh, that's cool. That would work out well. Let's give that a try. And some of the stuff worked out really well and it's still on the rig today. Other stuff did not and got cut off and welded something else on. So it was all those years, the culmination where that Jeep sits today is the culmination of hours and miles of trail time. Not only me driving, but watching, seeing what worked, what didn't work on the trail, and then incorporating that into the Jeep. And so that's where it is today. And I mean, like this weekend, freaking ran great. It was awesome. And but it was like every trip up until even 5 years ago, it was like, I needed to fix something pretty major on it, I mean, major either cost-wise or took a few weeks to fix. So my whole premise of building that Jeep was I work hard during the week. It does cost a lot of money to go 4-wheeling. I don't want to break shit. I want to build this thing so it is way overbuilt to rock crawl, which is a lot, right? It's not, if I was just going down forest roads and rock landing, overlanding, whatever, fine. But when you build up a rig to that status, you got to overbuild everything. I mean, the electrical system, redundancy, all this stuff, spare parts, so on down the line. So that's where the Jeep sits today. And the last 5 years, it's been nice to just get in it, turn the key, go run a trail, come home, go through everything, nut and bolt everything, grease, check it out. Okay, it's ready for the next trail run. Put some fuel in it and go. Not saying that I don't break. I still break stuff, but it's less. It's pretty much me doing something stupid on the trail that I'm breaking stuff now, which happens quite a bit.
Understood. And I did see you playing around this weekend, so that was fun. Can you break down a little bit of the mechanics, like what's underneath it? Gearing, axles, a motor swap,
Yeah.
what have you done? What are some of the things you've done to it?
So originally, like I say, it had the 258 straight six, which is a great engine, and nothing wrong with that engine. And I could have put fuel injection on it; would have been totally, that engine would be in there today. But growing up in the hot rod scene, I wanted V8. I had to have a V8. I love the sound of a V8. So we put in a 327 Chevy, ran that motor for years. Great motor, turbo 350 automatic. I was diehard on having a granny gear manual transmission. One of my dad's friends said, I will build you an automatic transmission that you will absolutely love. And at that time, automatics four-wheeling were not super popular. Like today, I mean, every Ultra 4 guy is running it. I mean, they work. The juice box works. And so I was very skeptical, but when I started wheeling and the way that he built it and with the torque converter, it worked extremely well. So that turbo 350 automatic's been in there since 1990. It's been rebuilt twice. And it's got a manual valve body now. So 327 started losing compression and just hours and hours on end of idling on the trail, So I put a 383 stroker motor in it, crate motor, with roller cam, rockers, everything. So that engine runs very smooth. Put that in a couple years ago, rebuilt the Turbo 350 at that point. Atlas transfer case, I was running a Dana 20, which is a stock case for years with a lower gear set. I think it was like almost a 3-to-1 at that point. That Grim Jeepers website that you referred to in your podcast, that one's been around forever. Mm-hmm. It is the best. It should be out there forever, living in infamy of calculating gear ratios and stuff. So I went through that and decided what Atlas transfer case ratio I wanted to go with. And it kept going back to 5-to-1. And I'm like, man, that is low. And even when I ordered it from Atlas, the guy questioned me. He's like, are you running a 4-cylinder or something? And I go, no, I'm running a V8. He goes, and then I walked him through. So the axles are 456s in the pumpkins, air lockers, front and rear. But the transmission is my weak point in gear ratio land. It's a stock gear ratio, which is 252-to-1 first gear, 152-to-1 second gear, 1-to-1 third gear. Now they do make a kit where you can lower that first gear, but when I started doing all the equations, so back in the day when I had the Turbo 350 with the Dana 300, I'd run around rock crawling in first gear, rarely get into second gear unless we hit some flat, trail. Well, with the 5-to-1, that puts me in my second gear all day rock crawling. So now I can go down to first gear if I get into some real gnarly stuff, or I can jump up to third gear and doing something a little bit more, like the snow wheeling, recently. Mm-hmm. Needed a little bit more wheel speed and stuff. But my gap between third gear low and first gear high is crazy. So, but with the automatic, you cheat a little bit. So it's got a little leeway. But yeah, so that's what I got now. I put in the Dynatrac Pro Rock 60s. Back in the day, I was at Moab battling between Jim McGee, the owner of Dynatrac, and Curry was right across from them in the Friday shopping fest, I call it. Their trade show is awesome. And I was just negotiating the best deal, and I really wanted to go with Dynatrac. I love the way they were built. Nothing against Curry. They make fantastic axles, and I've seen them work well out on the trails, but I love the way that Jim had those axles set up. And so I scored a deal with him, and thank God I did it at the time. I didn't have a house or any payments or anything like that, and I was able to afford axles at that time. Couldn't do it today. I couldn't put Dynatracs in today, but they've lasted all those years. I mean, that was back in 2001 or 2, I think, when I bought those axles. And other than changing out the gear fluid a few times, haven't done anything else to those axles and lubing the front wheel bearings. So nice. Yeah, that's kind of the drivetrain there.
That's awesome. So from there, you said you rebuilt it 5 times. You put all this work into it. And I know that today we wanted to discuss a little bit in regards to building a rig or buying a rig.
Right.
Because you also fairly recently, was it 2017? Was I
It was
correct?
18, I think.
18?
Yeah.
2018?
Yeah.
You recently went out and you bought yourself a buggy.
Right. A true.
Was it ever raced?
Yes.
It
It
was.
competed in King of the Hammers in 2011.
Okay.
And it made
I
it.
thought I remembered that,
Yeah,
but
that's the story, the folklore behind it. You know, who knows? But I don't have any pictures to prove it. But it was a professionally built chassis by Score, SKOR.
hmm.
So it was built out of Utah, and this guy's still building the same type of frames today,
Oh
but
wow.
he's building them for the military.
Okay.
And they're doing some crazy military stuff, putting turrets and stuff on the top of this buggy. But yeah, Score Off Road built these chassis, and that's what I was looking for. Well, let me back up a minute. So, you know, building that Jeep and everything was great, and you just keep improving, right? And it's like, okay, now it's a spring over. It's got YJ springs on it, you know, the Barbie Jeep springs. It's their aftermarket Rubicon Express springs, but they're built for a spring over. Little custom shackle going on in the rear, reverse shackle up front. That Jeep flexes extremely well. It does really well in the rocks. But again, you see these 4-linked rigs,
Okay.
you know, and the brand new, you know, when TJs came out and the JLs and stuff. I mean, coil suspension's where it's at. I mean, that's hard to dispute off road. And you do coilovers and link it, bring it on. You got the best ride and flex. But anyways, so that was where I was going with the Jeep next. And you start pricing out links, coilover shocks, all the stuff. You know, you can fabricate your own bracketry, but the bracketry isn't that expensive. You know, but hard goods that you're going to go out and buy, you know, it was big money. And everybody that I've talked to over the years, I go, hey, look, you know, they're like, I want to get into 4-wheeling. What should I get? You know, and I'm like, okay, well, what kind of 4-wheeling? You know, come out with me. Let's show you a few things. See if you like this rock crawling scene or not, or what. So, you know, you go out and buy a rig that somebody put their blood, sweat, and tears into, and have the coilovers or whatever on it. To build that exact same rig that you just bought is probably going to be twice the price. You know, and you just building a rig is expensive, not only time wise, but the actual parts list, ordering all that stuff online. So if you can buy something that has a lot of good parts on it, you're ahead of the game. So that's what started me looking at buggies, because I'm like, for, you know, literally $4,000 or $5,000 more, I could go buy a whole nother rig. Watching the market, I mean, I watched the market for over a year, you know, seeing what was out there. What could you get for 10,000, 20,000, 30,000? And of course, $40,000 and up, you were getting some badass turnkey rigs that were highly capable, you know, top end stuff on them. So this buggy fell in my lap. Buddies were looking around for me. People love spending my money, I guess, and so were sending me links and stuff, and sending me links to these $60,000-$70,000 buggies. Well, yeah, they're badass, they're rear steer, but I didn't have that chinga to spend on it. So I had a budget of you know, in the $15,000-$20,000 range. I wanted to buy something that had a good chassis, and some parts were a bonus, something that I could build up from there. That it wasn't a garage built chassis. Nothing against people that have done that, because I've seen some good garage built, but I wanted the engineering right. You know, it takes hours and expertise from those people to figure out where these links go, how these shocks are going to set up and everything. All that stuff was, you know, I wanted to be done. I didn't want to have to engineer the rig. So yeah, this one kind of fell in my lap one night, and contacted the owner and went and looked at it. And I'm like, man, this checks all the boxes and some. and had a lot of great parts on it that I could, and it was very similar to if you plug in on the Grim Jeeper website, that gear ratio, the transmission, the axle ratios, all that stuff, and it gives you all your final drive ratios. My Jeep and buggy are damn near the same. So when I wheel both of them, I know what, just intuitively, I know what gear to be in, because they both have turbo 350 automatics, but the Jeep has 38s on it and the buggy has 43s. They both have a 5-to-1 transfer case, Atlas transfer case, but the buggy has 513s in the diffs, and the gear ratio all maps out to be the same. So it's the crawling and ratios and everything are the same at the end of the day. So
That's cool.
Yeah, it just seemed to fit, and it definitely is a whole different animal than driving the Jeep.
Yeah, definitely. And what I really think is neat about the buggy is that I guess it's a mid rear engine.
Technically, it is a mid-engine car because
Yeah,
by definition, the engine is in front of the rear axle. So that puts it as a mid-engine car.
behind the rear axle.
In front of the rear axle. So it's in
Oh,
front
in front of the rear axle.
If it was
and
behind the rear
the
axle,
front
it'd be a
axle.
rear engine
Yeah.
car. And that's when
Right.
you're dealing with transaxles and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything's backwards on it. I had to learn all this stuff. Axles are flipped upside down. The transfer case is backwards because what was front wheel high is now rear high. And there's I could go on for hours of all the stuff I learned over the last year and a half of owning this thing, of what how this thing works.
Yeah.
But that's some fun too.
No, definitely. And I think that's what's going to make today a great conversation with you, because we are going to be discussing should you buy a rig or should you build your rig? And you've done both,
I have.
right? You've had the opportunity to rebuild your CJ a few times, and then you realized it's like, look, I've wanted to build a vehicle to this level, and to do that, I'm going to have to spend X amount of money. Maybe I should just buy a rig that's already done and already has all that completed. Right.
Financially, there's no doubt about it. That's the best way to go. Go out and buy somebody else's project.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's a bunch of sad situations out there. Somebody getting married, they're forced to sell the rig. Somebody, financially needs to get rid of a toy, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you can pick up there's deals to be had. And there's complete junk out there that you don't want to touch. But educate yourself on what you want, what you're looking for, and certain things that you absolutely want, and don't compromise on that, and be patient. Especially with the social media and stuff, there's so much, you find stuff so much faster than back in the day when you were searching through the newspaper or something.
Mm-hmm.
It would take forever to find, even find a rig or a dozen rigs to look at. Now you can look at 30 in a night on the internet and talk to those people.
Yeah, almost instantaneously.
Yes.
Which is wild. So so besides the price factor, what about knowledge of the rig? Like,
exactly,
you have a balance there, right? Like, I just went out and bought this rig. I really don't know a whole lot about it. I don't know anything about the rig or how it was put together.
Right. Exactly right. So that is a huge thing. Just like going out, you got a ton of cash, whatever, you go to a dealership and buy a brand new JL that's already got, it's been lifted, and maybe they threw a winch on it and a light bar and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Great. You got this rig, and you go out and take it four-wheeling. Very capable rig, but maybe you don't have a lot of experience four-wheeling. You definitely don't have experience with that rig. And if something breaks, I should say when something breaks on the trail, because it's a matter of when. I don't care how well your vehicle is maintained and everything. I definitely know when somebody hasn't been maintaining their vehicle and stuff breaks, but we break stuff all the time. It's the nature of the beast out there. And to me, that's one of the fun aspects of four-wheeling, is the MacGyver aspect, I call it, in that you need to figure out how to fix this thing. How are we going to get it off the trail, safety situation, whatever it may be, how are we going to remedy the situation? So somebody that's got, more dollars and cents in this classic example of, I can go out and buy a brand new rig, fully set up, go out on the trail, do some pretty crazy stuff in that vehicle, even though maybe I don't have the experience driving it behind the wheel. But when something breaks, I just know where to put the gas in and maybe check the oil, and let air out of the tire to put air back in. So that mechanical aspect, knowing your vehicle inside and out, knowing which specialty tools to carry, because most people have the basic tools, right? They got combination wrenches, sockets, screwdrivers, all the base stuff, pliers, baling wire, duct tape for the Toyotas, to keep them going. I mean, whatever it is, I got to get my Toyota jabbed.
Zip ties, don't forget about those.
That's right. Zip ties are huge.
We got the rig off a trail this weekend with zip ties, didn't we?
That's right. That's right. So, but having some specialty tools, you got to get into that front end. And just like I discovered on the buggy, there is a monster snap ring for that 14 bolt front end. And I didn't have anything in my shop at home. My dad didn't have anything in his shop. I called friends. I got the biggest snap ring pliers I could find from a buddy of mine that I thought for sure would have it. And his was still too small. And we would have been screwed on the trail if I had to pull an axle out or something. So it's that stuff that you learn from working on your vehicle in the comfort of your garage, listening to the radio, listening to podcasts, whatever it is, drinking your beverage of choice in a relaxed environment where you're like, okay, tomorrow I need to order this tool online, or I need to run down and pick up this tool. When you're out on the trail and nobody's got that tool and you can't fix it, you can't fabricate something on the trail. Well, now somebody's running to town or whatever it is. So I cannot emphasize enough knowing, how to work on the vehicle. And as I've gotten older, I've been through, these 4-wheel drive clubs that I support and love. And it's great seeing people that just get into sport. We encourage them. And I also encourage them to start working on their own vehicle, so they can learn.
Sure.
Because it's
no, definitely. So how about a first time off-roader? Would you encourage them to go out and buy a rig that's already built, or would you encourage them to build a rig to gain that knowledge?
So the first question I'd ask them is, what's their budget? So if they've got deep pockets and good credit, and have the time and a skill set, then definitely build your own rig. And the reason for that is because the sense of pride, not only conquering, like, let's say the Rubicon, everybody knows the Rubicon. Whether you've been there or not, you've heard of the Rubicon Trail. It's the holy grail for a lot of four-wheelers. It's like, you got to do it. You got to check that off your bucket list. You buy a Jeep that has Rubicon on the hood and it's set up for the Rubicon. Great, let's go. But if you go and buy somebody's built rig or off a lot or whatever it is, and okay, you bolt on a light bar, you put new seat covers on, whatever, minor stuff, put on a tire rack, a gas can carrier, whatever it is, that's fine. Great. Get out there, have a great time, super encourage it. But the people that have spent blood, sweat, tears building their rig, and then you take it across a trail, the magnitude of Rubicon, you have an extra sense of pride. It's like, wow, not only did my vehicle just make it up this crazy, sluice box, a little sluice or something, but it's a vehicle that I worked on, that I built. And to me, that was what was awesome. It's a project that my dad and I did, even though my dad really wasn't into four-wheeling or anything, but he had the engineering and the mechanical skill. And I'd tell him what I was trying to achieve and do a cocktail napkin sketch. And he would come up with an idea, better than I would have ever dreamt of. And then we try it. And then, come back on Sunday afternoon and go, well, how'd it work? Well, actually, it worked really well. It was great. Or, you know what, we need to do this now and try that. So the sense of pride is huge. It just enhances that full trail experience, and then how to fix it when something goes wrong on the trail. I mean, there's so many times with the people that I four-wheel with, right? Something goes wrong. We saw it this weekend. Oh, I know what, check. Boom. Okay. Boom. Okay, I'm running. I got it. I got it going. They know their vehicle inside and out.
Right.
So that is the, you know, epitome, right, of four-wheeling in my mind. But financially being fiscally responsible, and I don't know a whole lot of people with abundance of time on their hands going out and buying a setup rig. I mean, as much as I bag on Toyotas, going out and finding a Toyota pickup like yours, you know, an 80s Toyota pickup that's got a solid front axle or whatever, or you're going to sass it. I mean, financially, you can get into the sport and have a freaking blast and go do things that, you know, we're doing in our Jeeps that we've been wrenching on for 30 years and do the exact same trails. So it's a lot more efficient financially and time-wise.
Sure. No, definitely. So if you have the time, what you're saying is if you have the time, you should build a vehicle.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And the mechanical, you got to have three things: time, the mechanical ability, or somebody with the mechanical ability that you can lean on, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has the, because you're going to need the shop space. You're not, you know, yeah, you can build it in your driveway, whatever, but then you're, you know, ideally you got some mechanical ability and the tools, and financially, because buying 4 coilover shocks is not inexpensive.
No, it's not. But don't you think that they will gain the mechanical knowledge building their rig?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So that is the great thing. So let's kind of tie this in with modern day four-wheeling. Okay. Because back in the day, you bought a Toyota pickup or a Jeep, whatever it was, the aftermarket accessories were pretty slim. Buying stock parts was there.
Yeah.
Right? If I wanted a windshield wiper knob for my CJ5, 74 CJ5, I could get it. But, you know, if you wanted to, you know, and then the old Rancho lift kit or whatever, you could do a lift kit. You can get brake lines. You could get tires and wheels. But beyond that, there wasn't much support for the industry. And that's what's been super exciting for me to watch as long as I've been involved with this stuff, is watching the four-wheeling, the sport of four-wheeling grow in all different avenues, right? Like, I love Ultra 4. I love that whole deal. And that, you know, brought a whole nother level aspect and awareness of four-wheeling. And then you've got all these other different entities. Jeep, you know, came on board, and the engineers would go out there to Moab. I've seen them on the Rubicon Trail testing prototypes. They want to build something that they could sell to the customer to turn the key and go head out to the Rubicon Trail in a safe manner. So, and then the aftermarket industry came on board, right? And it's like selling accessory. I mean, full skid plates and gears and lockers and, you know, bolt on this, bolt. So now you could go out, right, and buy a TJ. We'll use the Jeep for example. TJ, LJ, or JL, a brand new Jeep. I'm still learning the Jeep alphabet, the newer Jeep alphabet.
What about a JT?
Yeah, and yeah, whatever. You could go out and buy one of those and hop on your computer and order a ton of pallets of stuff to show up to your garage and bolt it on with basic tools. Minimal fabrication skills, which is awesome. And by doing that, you know, you do a suspension lift, you know, you got to do brake lines, you got to bleed brakes and stuff. You're going to have a very good basic skill set on the trail, where unless something drastically goes wrong, you're probably going to be able to diagnose and repair that. Granted, you have the parts and stuff, and get you back wheeling on the trail again. And great reason to join a club or go out with some people that are capable and carry a lot of parts and have skills and a welder under the hood or whatever it may be. Between the group of people that you're going out with, some pretty good ideas get flung around, and it's amazing what that MacGyver effect happens, and get that rig back on the trail. So, but if you are that person that bought that newer rig and didn't do anything, handed your checkbook, your credit card to Four Wheel Parts or one of the great shops, around, WFO, whatever it may be, Arabia's, and said, hey, here, build this for me. That's great. But you're not going to know how it went together, or what worked, what didn't work, and all that other stuff. And that's going to hurt you out on the trail.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think one of the things about building your own rig is that you kind of have an understanding of the weak and the strong points, and
No
being
doubt.
able to have an understanding of when you can push the rig and when you should ease back, or what is going to break if it comes down to it.
So listening to your rig, right? Knowing your rig, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things we teach in the safety clinic. Is know your vehicle's limits, know your limits. And most of the time, your vehicle's way more capable than you are.
Yes.
And I mean, that's my case with the buggy. I mean, I got in that thing. That thing could do crazy stuff that even after the years of four-wheeling, I'm like, okay. But so we talked about that a little bit this weekend, was tuning into your rig, right? It's like, some people don't listen to the radio and they just strictly listen to their rig. Well, I got to have some tunes on the trail, but I don't have it cranking so loud that I can't hear the motor. I can't hear the suspension working, stuff. I want to know, and then just feel too, feeling the suspension. I mean, I could be blindfolded in my Jeep on any trail, and I could tell you if something's wrong with my steering or braking or anything. Just the senses, right, of knowing how my Jeep goes over the trail. And again, that's from wheeling so many years and working on it. And you hear something and you're like, oh, I know what that is. I guarantee you that's that U-joint's making noise. Here it goes. And you do a climb, snap, U-joint's gone. Whatever, Then there's other times that stuff breaks and you have no idea why or what caused it. So
yeah, I think on my end, if I were to be bluntly honest here, which I usually am anyway, I would say that if you are looking to get into off-roading, don't buy a new vehicle, but buy a vehicle that's already built up quite far.
yes.
And get an understanding of that vehicle, and maybe then you'll take it and you'll start fixing that up, and you'll gain more of that knowledge of maintenance and repair, that kind of way. Because I know that when we were talking about setting this up between the two of us, you were telling me that you've already done a ton of maintenance and a ton of work on the buggy, right? And you've already been tinkering and fixing and working on that. And it's kind of, that stems from your knowledge from the CJ, but it's an entirely different skill set with this buggy, because everything's twisted and upside down. So you're still going to learn a little bit about what you're purchasing sooner or later.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
No, absolutely right. Even if you don't have much knowledge, how are you going to learn? It's by doing it. And we've all been there. And especially now with the YouTube channels and stuff, right? Your YouTube channel, you're teaching people how to work and do things on Toyotas, which is awesome. And I mean, I use it all the time when I'm working on, my vehicle or a buddy's vehicle or something, and I may not know how to tear something apart, whatever we got to fix. Let's Google it and see what kind. Oh, hey, okay, here's Jimmy from Snail Trail that's going to show me how to change out this light, this headlight or what, something that would be, that you could figure out. But I'm going to save myself an hour to an hour and a half of trying to figure out how to tear this thing apart, by watching a YouTube video. So absolutely. The only thing I would negate you on there, if we're going to get into a little battle royale, is
let's do it.
Buying a vehicle that is very capable and well set up. And if you're new to four-wheeling, your learning curve of how to drive, how to actually four-wheel, you're never gonna learn true four-wheeling, right? So here's the example. If I get a rig and a beat up, whatever it is, let's just say Toyota pickup, with no locker.
Because it's beat up.
Because it's beat up. It's what do they call it? Raisin. The body's all raisined up.
Yeah.
You know, it's been beaten up, baby. But it's got no lockers. It's got some worn out 33s on it, you know, that are hard as a rock that should have been replaced freaking 10 years ago. But maybe it's got a you know, Marlin crawler case in it, you know, the motor's running good, all that stuff. That driving that vehicle is going to force you to pick lines, right? It's going to force you to learn how to four-wheel. Whereas opposed to getting in, let's go extreme, my buggy with 43 stickies, freaking fully spooled front and rear, that literally Stevie Wonder could drive this rig, point and shoot, and do really, really well, look like a rock star. Okay. So that's why I really like selectable lockers, because even, not saying that I'm all that in a bag of chips and know everything, because I definitely don't, but I even check myself when you're coming out of winter, when I don't do a whole lot of snow wheeling or anything, but you know, this time of the year, May, June, July, when we're starting to hit the rock trails, I purposely leave my lockers off. So I am open, where it forces me to pick a line. And, you know, the people that I go four-wheeling with, if I don't make it up something, I'm getting ridiculed and heckled. So it forces me to pick a good line. So that's the one thing. Yes, I agree with you on everything else. Get something that's built up, as many good parts that are on it, that, you know, usable good parts that you're not just going to be cutting off or throwing in the dumpster, that you can grow with. Because, and that's the first question I asked, you know, okay, what's your budget? And what do you plan on doing? What kind of four-wheeling? And if they're totally brand new to four-wheeling, it's a difficult question to ask. Maybe they got a budget, but they don't know what kind of four-wheeling they like. I mean, you know.
Well, and on top of that, if they're totally like green to four-wheeling, then they're not going to know what to look for in a buggy either, or a build of that status. And they're going to have to ask a friend or bring your friend, you know, and to get into it. And if, you know, maybe somebody's road passenger, you know, a whole bunch of times and really likes the rocks and knows that that's the direction they're going to want to go, they still aren't going to necessarily know what to buy, because, you know, maybe they're like, I really like Jeep, or I really like Toyota. And then they're going to have to bring a buddy to come and check that out with them, you know, to figure it out.
You know, and ideally you get involved with a four-wheel drive club early on, you know, one that's like multi, you know, not just a Toyota club, not just a Jeep club, whatever, that's got a bunch of different vehicles. Because if you can get, even if you don't have a vehicle, I mean, gosh, if I look back and joined the four-wheel drive club, back when I bought my F-150 and stuff, you know, I would have saved some money, you know, on trial and error stuff. So you get involved with a club early on and ride along. There's always people with right seats. Ride along, check it out, see, you know, and you go do the Rubicon or whatever, some rock trail, and you go, no, this was really cool. Or like, no, I have no desire to do that. Fine. It's different for everybody. And you're like, no, I just want a very capable rig that can go down some fire roads with some big ditches and through some fordsome water crossing. Great. You know, build your rig for that. But you don't know until you get that experience or get behind the wheel. And there's a lot of people that are willing, especially four-wheeling, because you put it in four-wheel low, first gear, whatever it is. I mean, you know, kids are driving these rigs, right? So a lot of people are willing to let you jump behind the wheel of their rig if they know you well enough, and where you could actually, you know, quote unquote, test drive and see, is this something that I want to do?
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, if you're that green, but ideally you meet some people, learn, and again, online, you know, you get into these forums, you can read a bunch of stuff. You got to weed through the BS and the people that are angry or anti this, anti that. And but you can get a sense maybe from some of those forums, and then start to befriend some people and check it out and go, you know, see what they did and stuff. And that you can learn from their mistakes.
Nice.
It'll save you money, time.
Definitely. Well, let's jump into some of these questions. And actually, that was the one I was going to jump into first. Outsane asked, what are we drinking? What's in the cups? Well, I got the Old Elk. I mentioned that a little earlier in the podcast. What do you have over there?
I have Rubicon, supporting Rubicon rye. So this is I believe it's 100% rye.
Wow.
Whiskey. Your friends, mutual friends of ours now. From Four Wheeling out of the Rubicon, and they're right there in El Dorado Hills.
They are. Dry Diggins Distillery.
Yep, Dry Diggins Distillery. And I shouldn't say I'm not, because I am a rye fan now. I was never a rye fan. Kind of spicy.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's got a
I'm
bite.
not there yet.
It's an acquired taste, but once you get there, you'll love it.
Okay.
Once you move away from a Toyota, you'll love Four Wheeling, Jimmy.
I do, because I don't love it now.
No, not at all.
It's not as fun yet. Let's see. Brian Hansel asked, do you prefer wheeling in the CJ or the buggy?
It was interesting getting in the CJ this past weekend, because October, Slick Rock Trail and stuff we did in Blue Lakes, we did in October. That was the last time I had four-wheeled the Jeep, and then brought the buggy to KOH in February. They're both very different.
Okay.
But if I had to choose between one, it'd be the Jeep, because it is more, yes, it's very capable, but I know that thing inside and out. I just know it inside and out, and I built it. It's just fun. It's just like this weekend. It ran great. I didn't get stuck. I didn't have to pull a winch line or a rope or anything, and didn't have to pull out one damn tool. And I was just like, that's a good weekend right there.
But we did have to pull out a Jeep.
We did. We
and a Toyota.
Jeep and a Toyota.
Which you'll all hear about on Thursday.
And I towed a Suzuki Samurai. So
right. I think we covered all the bases.
We did cover. We were non-denominational.
There you go. Brian Murphy asks, what spare parts should somebody bring out on the trail?
How long is this? How long do you want this to go?
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh.
I think let's keep it to some bare minimums or some smart answers.
So that could be a whole nother shop talk, trail talk. And that's the crazy thing. Over the years, I would see somebody pull out a tool and I'm like, oh, I'm going to carry that. Oh, I'm going to carry this. And you start, every trip you start carrying more and more stuff. And it got to a point where my little CJ5 was so loaded down with spare parts, tools, everything, and I didn't have room for camp gear for an overnight trip or anything, not to mention all the weight that I was carrying around. So any specialty tool that you gotta get an axle out of your rig or something, I would say those are kind of the oddball stuff to carry. Other than that, a basic tool set, whether it's Craftsman, gear wrench, whatever it is, with sockets, combination wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, definitely vice grips to pinch off brake lines if you have a brake line go south on you. What else do I carry that's kind of odd? I mean, tape, we joked about it earlier. Baling wire tape, tie wraps, absolutely. Electrical tape, some electrical components, fuses, relays for your vehicle. Each vehicle is different. Yeah. I actually have like a 6 or 7 page checklist that I put out over the years for newer people to four wheeling. Yeah, and it's evolved over the years, but
can you share that with me?
I will.
All right, I'll link that once I get it over here. I'll link that down below.
It needs to be. It probably needs I'll have to go through it. I might have to add some things to it because I haven't looked at it in a year or so. But it is a cool document in a pre-trail checklist, but it's very thorough. You look at it and you're like, really? Are you going to do that? Well, it's up to you.
And spare parts are on that category as well. And it really kind of depends on your rig and what you drive to figure out what spare parts you're going to take. But I think some of the essentials might be spare axle shafts, spare drive shafts. And then you kind of go down the line into, for Toyotas with solid axle swaps, we break a lot of steering studs all the time. That's what I
Right.
see out on the trail is steering studs are just busted up. And I carry them for mainly for other people, you know. But
Yeah.
do you have any other suggestions for
Yeah.
some
So
spare parts?
I was going to say you're going big stuff, drive shafts, axles. I mean, that's great if you have a spare drive shaft, spare axle.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, you know, U joints. I carry U joints.
Yep.
For you know, on my Jeep and buggy, that it's the same U joint on the drive lines front and rear. Then you got your axle U joints, which I don't carry because I know people that carry a whole axle, you know, left and right axle shaft, passenger driver axle shaft with the U joint and everything all put together. That's great if you got that kind of money and room to store that, but I never have. My experience has been when a U joint goes out in the front axle, the steering hub,
Mm-hmm.
it takes out the yoke and everything, right? So you need a whole replacement there. But
Definitely.
U joints, U bolts for spring rigs, you know, I carry those. I carry, oddly enough, and I've used it. And again, a lot of this stuff gets used for other people on the trail, which I'm more than happy to help out because I've had to borrow parts and stuff before. Oil filter, I've seen oil filters get a hole poked in on the trail, and at least, you know, 4 or 5 quarts of oil.
Yes.
You know, and I also carry transmission fluid because I'm a juice box, right? So I've got 6 quarts of tranny fluid in case I poke a hole in the pan or do something, you know, line blows or something. Power steering fluid and water. Don't have to carry antifreeze, but water, because I've been on trails where you don't see a water crossing or creek or anything that you can steal water from, and radiator, you know, problems with radiators, poking holes in radiators failing, the cap failing, whatever it is. You see a lot out on the trail, overheating issues. So
Definitely.
stuff like that, hoses, belts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
belts, a good one.
It's a huge thing, right? A belt goes out with, you know, you lose your alternator, you lose your water pump, maybe. If it's a serpentine belt, obviously you're going to lose everything. And then if you're full hydro, like the buggy, you lose a belt, you got no steering. She gone.
Mm-hmm.
So certain stuff like that. And then, like you mentioned on the Toyotas, you know, there's certain failure points, common failure point. Carry those parts, you know. Again, knowing your vehicle.
Definitely.
But there's common stuff that we just named.
Mm-hmm. Mike said,
hours.
Mike from Keep It Simple Off-Road or the Mike and Max Off-Road podcast said a pacifier for the whining passenger.
Correct. That's true. So I have people that will not go four-wheeling with me ever again because I scared the bejesus out of them. And then I have other people that I will never invite back four-wheeling because they're screaming rock, rut, cliff. No.
I often come across the radio and will just say, hey, watch out for the rock.
Yeah, right.
It's like, okay, that rock.
So yes, there's certain people that I really enjoy in the right seat that we're on the same page and have fun. But I am selected. My right seat is selected. And the right seat in the Jeep comes out very, very easily. And when I do Rubicon and stuff, I typically don't have the right seat in. That's where the ice chest goes.
Right. Okay. So Brian Murphy asked, what would be the ideal first 4x4 that is capable that won't break your bank if you had to buy one again?
Me?
You.
Oh boy.
I know what mine would be.
This can come back to get me. Well, the Jeep was great. I mean, I would do that over again because it's afforded me a lot of great opportunities. But right now, I would say look for if this right now 2020 a used TJ.
Okay.
A used, you know, Toyota pickup. As much as it pains me to say that, but again, because of the parts availability and the aftermarket support. But you could go out with a TJ, you know, and their prices have come down now that the JLs come out, right? And those were very capable rigs right off with no modifications with the coil suspension. I really like the LJ. That's the wheelbase and everything, but those are kind of, people have got onto that and their prices haven't haven't really come down. So, but yeah, that's what I would recommend. One of those two. And
Max
the Samurai.
asks if it would be a Liberty.
What's a Liberty? Is that what is that?
It's a KJ, isn't it?
You a Liberty?
KJ, Mr. Jeep owner over there.
That's a whole, I want to see that vehicle in person. I've never seen that vehicle.
Right.
You've never seen it in person.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen videos of it. It's obviously a very capable rig. I really want to see Mike in person to see if he really is true to form here. But
Mike or Max?
I mean, Max. I call it the Mike and Mike show because we
Right.
haven't met Max yet personally. But, again, but he's put a lot of work into that. That is nowhere stock Liberty. I mean, it's a Liberty shell. Let's face it. Everything else has been modified. But that's the cool thing about four-wheeling. You see these rigs that, like a Liberty, shouldn't be doing what he's doing with it in Arizona. And it's over there climbing up waterfalls and kicking ass. So,
right.
Yeah, but probably not good unless you got mechanical skills to buy a Liberty.
Right. Max also said LJs are awesome. I agree. LJs are pretty cool, but they're also they're like a unicorn of a Jeep, right? They're a longer two-door, so they're a little bit more pricey. It's not an easy to get into project.
No, it isn't. The aftermarket support's there for it, but yeah, they're harder to find. And I think it's because, I mean, like my CJ5 or even a CJ7, which was real popular back in the day, you don't have a whole lot of room in there if you're, going out camping for a couple nights, especially if you got a family.
Right.
A couple kids, the wife and you and all the camp gear and enough beer in the cooler to have a good trip. You don't have the room, but an LJ's got quite a bit of room. I'm constantly throwing stuff in other people's rigs because I don't have the camp gear space, but
yeah. So Brian Murphy asked if what would mine be, and I think mine would be if you were to go out and you were to look for buying a rig that's already done, I would look for a first gen Tacoma.
Okay.
So you're like 95, 96 to 2001-ish. Because those had really good motors. Hopefully you can find it already solid axle swapped. And then if you can find it with the lockers and some already lower transmission setups, like Marlin crawler boxes in there, you're not looking too expensive. You're probably looking at high 8s, maybe upwards of 12 in that range. And that would be like a killer starting spot.
And yeah, the only disadvantage of that rig is if it doesn't have a solid axle front, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Independent, because that would be pretty costly to, well, you could find a used axle and stuff, but you need some serious mechanical skill to sass it, as you guys say, solid axle swap. But if it already has that done, hell yeah. Those tacos are cool.
Definitely. And if you can get the 4-door ones, but that's when, okay, if you talk about the 4-door ones of those, then you're up like another $5 or $6 grand.
Right.
So.
Well, when you got Chris money, it's no big deal.
Right. So Outsane, a buddy of ours, an FJ Cruiser buddy, he asked if what would be your last mod?
My last mod? Like what I did last, or what would be the very last thing?
What is going to be your last mod? Last is in all caps.
There is no last mod.
That's what I said. I said
there is no last mod. When you've been doing this, I made that comment earlier, just empty every pocket. It's so true. No, anybody that's been serious about four-wheeling off-roading, I've never seen a vehicle done. I've got friends that have, just like I said, I rebuilt my Jeep 5 times from the frame up. I've got friends that have these very capable rigs, and they keep doing stuff and adding stuff and making improvements, right? And they're never done. So
absolutely.
Hopefully no wives are watching this, knowing that, when they're saying, oh no, honey, this is the last thing I need to go on the Rubicon. Well, that's not true.
Definitely. So let's give a little quick chat about what you are, who you are, where people can find you, and a little bit of wheeling, wine, and whiskey. So we've been talking about whiskey a little bit.
Yes.
And
cheers.
Let's where can people find you? What are you up to these days? I know that you guys, congratulations, you just passed 1 year on the podcast scene.
we passed.
Also, happy birthday.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, his birthday is Thursday, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been told.
Hmm.
You know, when you get up to my age, it's just another day.
I
But
know.
it's an excuse to
25
drink.
years old is horrible.
It it's an excuse to drink and have a really good meal. So, um, no, so Wheeling Wine and Whiskey, my co-host Chris and I have been friends for a long time, and you guys were actually influential. Tyler and Chris and I were sitting there drinking Coors Lights up at Barrett Lake and discussing this podcast thing. You and him were doing High Sierra 4x4 podcast at the time,
Right.
and we're talking about potentially, doing something different. And so anyways, I had a bunch of questions and just wanted to learn about it. And then, I'm like, I look at Chris, I'm like, yeah, we could do this. So we figured we got nothing to lose, started it. It's been an absolute blast. Looking back, hindsight, I had no idea the journey that it would take us on, and the people that we would meet along the way. And that's another thing I want to say about four wheeling, because, it's family. I mean, and we bag, I bag on Toyotas, whatever. You bag on Jeeps. I mean, everybody's got their favorite vehicle, but at the end of the day, if you're out on the trail, and regardless of whether it's just a dirt road and you're an overlander, or you got this crazy rock crawler, freaking Ultra 4 car, you're all out there for the same reason: to get outside, have fun, enjoy the mountains, and try to negotiate this mechanical vehicle over this crazy terrain, or a little river crossing, whatever it is. But the people that I have met over the years and the relationships, I mean, those are friends for life. It's been great. And the podcast is kind of like underscored all that by, having that common ground, and then talking with these people, even though they might be on a whole different level of four wheeling, been able to, we have common ground and connect. And to do it for a year, we were hoping we could put out a weekly podcast, and somehow, by the grace of God, we have, even with our busy schedules, Chris and I. Chris has taken the professional level of it, of, the audio and everything, and upgrading. We need to buy this, we need to buy that. And I'm like, okay, Chris, we're self-funded here. We can't go crazy getting, movie studio stuff here, but it's been fun. And we've had some great guests. We just did that, today was the second half of our anniversary, kind of year in review. Instagram. I knew very little about Instagram a year ago. I was on it, but wasn't super active. I'm not a Facebook guy. I know Instagram's owned by Facebook, but I love seeing pictures in that aspect of Instagram. So that's why I gravitated towards that. And so when we started the podcast, we started our Instagram page, Wheeling Wine and Whiskey. And we got to 100 followers, and I'm like, that is crazy. I never thought 100 people would be following us, right? And then it just started increasing as the word got around, and we just got over 1,000 followers here recently, which was like a huge goal, which is nothing in Instagram land. You need 10,000 before you're anybody in Instagram land, but it's just been fun. And my buddy Johnny helping us out a lot with he has a background in movies and making, audio and all this stuff. So he helped us out there. He helped us out with our logo. He has Dirtbag Clothing. He's the owner of Dirtbag Clothing. So it was great to collaborate with him and his designer to get our logo dialed in. And it's just crazy when we went from just a conversation at Barrett Lake to where we are today. And who knows what the future holds. I hope we can continue doing it. This relationship that we formed with Old Elk is pretty exciting, and I look forward to this year. Unfortunately, COVID has slowed things down a little bit, but everybody's getting creative of how they move forward. And so that's that. And I don't know what else to say. We've got the podcast. You can look us up at the website, wheelingwineandwhiskey.com, and then of course Instagram. Hit me up.
There you go. I was going to try and push everybody to get over there, so you popped over that 1,000, but I guess you guys already did it.
Yeah, well, get us to 10,000 now, Jimmy, with you
Right?
guys. Are you at 10,000 yet?
No,
Oh, no.
I don't know. I
And you're
think I'm
like
at
way more
6.
popular than we are. What are you
Yeah,
at?
I think 6,000.
Oh yeah, see, that's huge.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Let's see.
That's like Lorenzo back there. We need to get him busy. He's
Yeah,
not
this
doing.
is why I need Dino. Where's Dino at? I have 6'2".
Where's Dino? 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
Nice. See? Well, you guys, yeah. Woo-hoo. Well, you guys have put out a ton of content. I don't know. Yeah, 5 days a week, basically, you're putting out content during this COVID thing, which is admirable. But there was no way Chris and I were going to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, we actually got a bit of hate mail saying that we're putting out too much.
Well, and I can relate to that because I've got an older iPhone, and it was like my memory was like filling up, and I'm like, what the hell? And it was because, of course, I got a ton of video and pictures on there of Toyotas on their side or whatever, but it was also filling up with your podcast, and I couldn't, as much as I wanted to keep up, I couldn't. And then, Mike and Max's podcast, I'd listen to them. Well, they're once a week. I could deal with that, but you guys, even your 10-minute, tough Tyler's trail titty talk, whatever that was. I don't know, but 10 minutes, I was falling behind on those, but I'm caught up now. I am officially caught up.
A little bit of driving to the mountains definitely helps on that aspect.
It did. I have a lot of windshield time, and work has picked up as well. So that's a good thing. I might be able to actually buy some Jeep and buggy parts again.
Nice.
I've been put on hold. I bought like one tiny little Switch deal during this COVID thing because yeah, I wasn't working much, and it was getting dicey. It still is dicey.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate your time, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope your words of wisdom ring true with a lot of people out there, and whether to buy or to build. And I do think that we both agree to buy into a good starting position is a good decision, financially and physically and mentally.
Yes, everything, all the above, and learn that rig, and you're going to be way ahead of the game.
Definitely. Well, with that, Jason, I want to say one final thing, and that is that I hope Wheeling Wine and Whiskey will do a sponsorship for some sort of whiskey with Old Elk.
Oh, that would be good. That would be good.
I think so too. Maybe pass them over some wine barrels or something.
Yeah, we're walking down that road. It's great. I it's been fun. It's been very fun, and yeah. I will say we saved the whiskey for after the trail, and that was one of the things when we were coming up with all these names for this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to rat whore ourselves into one particular topic. We wanted to encompass, Chris and I, of what we do. We love to go four-wheeling. We love to camp. Of course, we love wine and whiskey and adult beverages. So the C- and all that. But so we wanted something that kind of go that, and we had it whiskey, wheeling, and wine, which I know you call it that, and Tyler calls it that, and everybody else at times. But we do four-wheel responsibly, and want to save the whiskey and the wine for the campfire afterwards. But it's been great learning about whiskey and stuff. It forced me to dive in very deep into the bourbon and whiskey world.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I've learned a lot of in regards to that as well. And that's one of the best things I think about listening to your guys' podcast is that, there's I know a lot of the off-roading scene, but I don't know a lot of the wine or the whiskey scenes. And, you guys talking about different layers of wine and what goes into wine and how it's made, and different layers of the whiskey and what's the difference between rye, bourbon, and whiskey, and
right,
all those things. It's a good, knowledgeable podcast on that level, minus the humor that you guys always throw in there.
Yeah, we've got a good banter. Chris and I play off each other very well, and yeah, it has. It's been very. I don't know what the word is, cool to have listeners write in and say, I tried this whiskey, or I did this, or this wine is great. And, show a picture of them, holding this bottle of wine that we talked about or whatever. And, there's so many different avenues out there, whatever your pleasure. And I always say it, I'm not a wine or whiskey snob or anything. It's like, if you drink it and like it, fine. Yeah, I'm going to give Tyler shit because he drinks Fireball. That's just crap. But sugary whiskey is not good. But, if that's your thing, fine. Enjoy it. Who cares? You get to my age, you don't care what people think about what you do or drink or whatever. But there's definitely some cool stuff out there to be introduced to. And we've been able to introduce people to, open up their horizons a little bit and try and go, wow, that actually is pretty good. And that's what I enjoy. It's like, don't rat hole yourself into one area when there's so much out there to expand on and whatever your palate desires. So there you go.
There you go. A lot of people in the chat are asking for more. I think they're mainly pointing at me. More trail rigs or trail videos. And Outsane says, great podcast. Thanks for everything, guys.
Awesome.
So I think we should do more trail rides. And while we're out there, let's record some podcasts. What do you say?
You're absolutely right. And that's been one of the fun things that Chris and I say live but it's on remote, whatever, doing podcasts. And we were supposed to do one this past weekend, but my co-host wasn't there. So, but we will, I guarantee we will be doing more remote podcasts. And I just rewatched the Barrett Lake Trail the other day that you put out that we did last year. And that, obviously we were part of it, but there's a lot of cool videos that you put out on trails that somebody that is just getting into four-wheeling or has been four-wheeling and hasn't done that particular trail and can watch your video and go, you really capture what, watching these different rigs go down the trail and what it's like. Back in the day, we had no resource like that. It was like, okay, we're going to go do this trail. I have no idea what to expect. Nobody's been on this trail. And then, you get out there and you go, holy crap, I wish I would have packed XYZ or been prepared for this. So that's a cool thing with this modern technology of social media.
Definitely. Well, with that, Jason, I think I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and joining us on this little snail shop talk. I appreciate your time and all your words of wisdom.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much wisdom there was. There was probably a lot of BS. But anyways, great. Thank you for having me on. Cheers, Jimmy. Honor and a pleasure to be part of this and this evolving. You let some old timers on your shop talk here. So looking forward to more wheeling adventures. So
definitely.
Cheers, everybody that's watching, and thanks. Yeah. See you out on the trails.
Definitely. Well,
keep crawling.